Hello, everyone. The world stage has seen a flurry of activity recently, with numerous significant events unfolding across the globe. From geopolitical shifts to major economic developments, there's a lot to unpack. Today, we're diving deep into a story that intertwines energy, international trade, and high-stakes politics, focusing on Canada's evolving energy landscape and its pivot towards Asian markets, particularly in light of developments surrounding the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion and responses from global players. We'll explore the intricacies of these events and provide a comprehensive analysis. Stick around until the end, as we'll be summarizing the key takeaways and offering our conclusions on what these changes might mean for the future. Before we delve into the details, if you find our analysis insightful, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the like button. Your support is incredibly important for helping us grow and continue bringing you in-depth content like this. Also, let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. We love hearing from our global audience. April 2nd, 2025, is poised to be etched in memory as a landmark date, the day American industry experienced a renaissance, the day America's trajectory was reset, and the day we embarked on the mission to restore America's prosperity. These were strong words, hinting at a potential shift in U.S. economic policy, particularly concerning international trade and energy partnerships. This sentiment echoes amidst a significant development north of the border, the commencement of operations for Canada's long-debated Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, often referred to as TMX. This project, years behind its original timeline and billions over budget, is finally transporting oil. Oil is now coursing through the expanded pipeline, a project the Canadian federal government acquired back in 2018. It represents a monumental undertaking designed to reshape Canada's energy export map. The TMX expansion, a colossal infrastructure venture decades in the making, has successfully carved its path from the oil-rich heartland of Canada to the rugged Pacific coast. This $34 billion behemoth, unleashed in May 2024, promised to fundamentally alter Canada's energy future. Its primary objective was to liberate Canadian crude from the near-exclusive grip of the United States market. For years, Uncle Sam had been the destination for an overwhelming 98% of Canada's oil exports, often purchased at a discount due to limited alternative export routes. TMX was conceived as the key to unlocking Asia's massive energy markets, envisioned as opening a long-sealed vault of opportunity, allowing Canada to diversify its customer base and potentially command higher prices for its valuable resource. Please make sure to watch this video until the very end, as we'll be drawing important conclusions from these complex developments. Your viewership helps our channel immensely. However, just as the initial barrels of oil began their journey westward through the newly expanded TMX system, a political bombshell reverberated from the south. Donald Trump, signaling a potential return to the White House, publicly threatened to impose a 10% tariff on all Canadian oil and gas imports. This wasn't just idle talk. It was a direct challenge, swinging like a potential economic guillotine over Ottawa's aspirations for energy diversification and improved export revenues. The timing couldn't have been more pointed, potentially undermining the very project designed to lessen reliance on the U.S. market. The new Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, found himself immediately addressing this emerging trade tension, describing Trump's proposed tariffs as misguided and part of an unprecedented series of U.S. actions aimed at reshaping the international trading system. The situation created immediate uncertainty, casting a shadow over the TMX's commercial launch and highlighting the fragile customer relationship. Chaos loomed as Canada's energy sector, poised for a new era, faced a potential setback orchestrated by its largest trading partner. Amidst this unfolding drama between North American neighbors, another global power made a calculated move. With the precision of a chess grandmaster, China's Rongsheng Petrochemical, a refining titan boasting an enormous 800,000-barrel-a-day appetite for crude oil, sensed a unique opportunity. Quietly, Rongsheng established a presence in Calgary, the nerve center of Alberta's oil industry. This wasn't just a symbolic gesture, it was a strategic foothold. Shortly thereafter, Rongsheng struck a significant crude oil supply deal with Suncor Energy, one of Canada's largest oil producers. This agreement wasn't merely a spot purchase. It locked in substantial shipments scheduled to commence in June 2025, flowing directly from the newly operational Pacific outlet provided by the TMX expansion. What might appear as a routine business transaction on the surface could, in fact, represent the initial tremor of a global energy realignment, a calculated diversification by China away from volatile regions, and a potential lifeline for Canadian producers seeking markets beyond the U.S. Rongsheng Petrochemical's entry into the North American market is far from a minor event. The company, a key subsidiary of the massive Zhejiang Rongsheng Holding Group, operates one of China's most significant single-train refineries. Its operational scale is vast, and critically, it possesses a substantial demand for heavy crude oil. This is precisely the type of oil abundantly produced by Canada's oil sands, a fact highlighted by reporting from Reuters. This chemical compatibility makes Canadian heavy sour crude particularly attractive to Rongsheng's sophisticated refining infrastructure. Their new Calgary outpost, situated in a sleek downtown tower, isn't just an office. It's a strategic command center. It forms part of a larger corporate strategy aimed at securing stable, long-term supply chains. This move aligns with China's broader geopolitical objective of reducing its dependency on Middle Eastern oil sources, especially given the increasing instability and uncertainty in that region. Rongsheng is actively seeking reliable energy partners elsewhere, and Canada, with its vast reserves and new Pacific gateway via TMX, presents a compelling option. The initial deal struck between Rongsheng and Suncor Energy sets a clear precedent. The contract guarantees the shipment of 200,000 barrels of Canadian crude per month, starting June 2025, directly from the TMX terminal in Burnaby to Rongsheng's facilities in Zhoushan, China. Bloomberg reports confirm that these initial cargoes are already being booked onto very large crude carriers, or VLCCs, signaling the seriousness of the commitment. But Rongsheng's ambitions don't stop with Suncor. According to sources cited by the Globe and Mail, the Chinese petrochemical giant is concurrently engaged in discussions with other major players in the Alberta oil patch. These include heavyweights like Cenovus Energy, which produced around 800,000 barrels per day in 2024, and Canadian Natural Resources Limited, CNRL. Furthermore, Rongsheng is reportedly even exploring potential deals with global energy giants like BP and Shell, both of which hold significant stakes in Canada's oil sands operations. This multi-pronged approach indicates a comprehensive strategy to secure diverse sources of Canadian crude. A key element facilitating these deals is the structure of the contracts, primarily based on free-on-board (FOB) terms. This savvy strategic approach grants Rongsheng control over the oil the moment it is loaded onto the tankers at the Canadian port. This control provides significant flexibility. Should market prices spike in other Asian destinations like Japan or India, Rongsheng has the logistical power to reroute these tankers to capture higher profits. According to analysis by S&P Global, this arbitrage capability, enabled by FOB terms and control over shipping, could potentially earn Rongsheng an additional $2 to $3 per barrel. This flexibility not only maximizes Rongsheng's potential profits, but also underscores their sophisticated approach to navigating the complexities of the global oil market. It turns the purchase from a simple supply agreement into a dynamic trading opportunity, further solidifying their strategic position in sourcing Canadian crude via the new TMX artery. Richard Masson from the University of Calgary noted the significance, stating, "It's a big deal. We've been waiting for this for many years. It's hard to build big pipelines, and getting this done, although it's been very expensive and very delayed, is finally something that's going to give market access to Canada, which is one of the bigger oil producers in the world." The establishment of Rongsheng's Canadian trading arm is being spearheaded by Wang Jia, a seasoned 20-year veteran of the oil industry. Wang Jia is renowned for having built PetroChina's Canadian trading operations back in the 2000s. Known for his extensive industry connections and astute deal-making capabilities, Wang is now leading Rongsheng's bold foray into Canada's energy sector through its subsidiary, Auror. The company has ambitious plans, aiming to secure 10% of the Trans Mountain Expansion Pipeline's total capacity by the year 2026, according to energy industry insiders who spoke with Energy Intelligence. This indicates a long-term commitment and a significant volume target. The TMX expansion itself is the critical enabler of this entire strategic shift. As one source emphasized, TMX is the linchpin. After enduring over a decade of legal battles, environmental protests, and escalating costs that ballooned far beyond initial estimates, the TMX project officially commenced commercial operations on May 1, 2024. This expansion tripled the pipeline's capacity to a substantial 890,000 barrels per day, enough oil to fill 50 Olympic-sized swimming pools daily. The journey of the TMX expansion project was fraught with challenges. Originally estimated at $7.4 billion, the final price tag soared dramatically, a fact well documented by CBC News. The Canadian federal government has owned TMX since acquiring it from Kinder Morgan for $4.5 billion in 2018, stepping in when the private sector balked at the mounting risks and opposition. The project encountered fierce resistance along its route. Environmental organizations raised alarms about potential spill risks, impacting the ecologically sensitive Salish Sea. Indigenous groups, including the Squamish Nation, SKWXDU7 Mesh, UXWU initiated legal actions citing inadequate consultation regarding the pipeline's impact on their traditional territories and rights. These legal challenges successfully halted construction at various points until a Supreme Court ruling in 2022 ultimately allowed the work to proceed. Now, the expanded system boasts 20 new storage tanks and a modernized West Ridge Marine Terminal in Burnaby, ready to facilitate the loading of crude onto tankers bound for international markets, fundamentally altering Canada's energy export dynamics. Canada's energy strategy isn't solely focused on oil delivered via TMX. Natural gas, particularly in the form of liquefied natural gas, LNG, is another major component of this pivot towards global markets, especially Asia and potentially Europe. The LNG Canada project, an enormous $40 billion undertaking located in Kitimat, British Columbia, exemplifies this ambition. Led by Shell, with significant participation from China's PetroChina, this facility is nearing completion and is scheduled to begin shipping LNG by late 2025. Its initial phase is designed to export 14 million tons of LNG annually, primarily targeting the burgeoning demand in key Asian economies like Japan and China. Gas consumption in China alone is projected to rise by 8% per year, according to the International Energy Agency, IEA, making it a crucial market for LNG suppliers. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has also advocated for reviving the cancelled Energy East pipeline project, arguing it could supply eastern Canada and provide an export route to Europe, further diversifying away from U.S. reliance. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, while not committing to Energy East, is exploring the feasibility of Arctic LNG routes to potentially supply allies like Germany, reacting to supply disruptions caused by Russia's actions. This strategic reorientation is underscored by recent trade figures and government initiatives. In 2024, Canadian energy exports to the United States, while still substantial, reached 200 billion Canadian dollars, according to Statistics Canada. However, the potential 10% tariff threatened by former President Trump highlighted the vulnerability of this dependence, adding significant urgency to Canada's diversification efforts. That same year, Prime Minister Trudeau announced a $6.5 billion global markets accelerator plan. A significant portion of this, $5 billion, is specifically earmarked to assist Canadian oil and gas exporters in accessing and developing new markets in Asia. An additional $1 billion was allocated to support Canadian farmers impacted by ongoing U.S. trade tensions, acknowledging the broader economic friction. The industry responded rapidly to these signals. Suncor's groundbreaking deal with China's Rongsheng Petrochemical, facilitated by the newly operational TMX, was finalized just weeks after the government's plan was announced, demonstrating the tangible shift already underway. Hydroelectric power also plays a role in Canada's energy export portfolio, although primarily focused on the U.S. market currently. In 2024, Hydro-Quebec and Ontario Power Generation collectively exported 42 terawatt-hours of hydropower to the United States. This volume is sufficient to power approximately 4 million American homes and generated $2 billion in export revenue, as reported by Natural Resources Canada. While significant, this electricity trade remains largely confined to North America. The larger strategic game involves leveraging Canada's vast fossil fuel resources, oil via TMX and natural gas via LNG Canada, to capture a share of the massive $15 trillion Asian energy market. This represents a fundamental rebalancing of Canada's energy compass, moving decisively away from near-total reliance on its southern neighbor. The deep energy integration that characterized the U.S.-Canada relationship for decades is visibly beginning to fray as Ottawa charts a new course on the global energy map. The United States, which has historically relied on Canada for 60% of its crude oil imports, may soon confront the economic consequences of this shift. Tariffs, intended perhaps as leverage, could ironically accelerate Canada's pivot to Asia. Should Canadian crude become more expensive or restricted due to tariffs, U.S. refineries, particularly those on the Gulf Coast and in the Midwest, which process roughly 3.9 million barrels of Canadian crude daily, would face tighter margins. They might be forced to seek replacements from potentially more expensive sources like Saudi Arabia or Venezuela. Analysts at Wood Mackenzie caution that this substitution could drive up costs for U.S. refiners by $5 to $10 per barrel. Goldman Sachs predicts a knock-on effect for American consumers, with gasoline prices potentially surging by as much as 80 cents per gallon, a politically explosive prospect, especially in an election year. The intricate web of North American energy interdependence is being tested, and the outcomes remain uncertain. Despite ongoing diplomatic friction over issues like Huawei and canola trade restrictions, both Canada and China appear to treat energy, particularly crude oil, as a pragmatic economic necessity, largely insulated from broader political disputes. Bloomberg notes that crude oil remains untouched by sanctions, deemed simply too vital for both nations' economies. This allows deals like the Rongsheng-Suncor agreement to proceed. China imported an average of 184,000 barrels of Canadian oil per day in 2024, a 22% increase from the previous year, according to Chinese customs data, indicating a growing appetite even before TMX fully ramps up. With TMX operational and LNG Canada approaching its launch, Canada is actively transforming its role from primarily a U.S. supplier into a versatile global energy player, eyeing the vast Indo-Pacific economy, valued at $47.9 trillion, as its new frontier. Conclusions. So, what can we conclude from this intricate dance of pipelines, politics, and petroleum? First, Canada is making a determined and expensive bet on diversifying its energy exports beyond the United States. The completion of the $34 billion Trans Mountain expansion, despite massive cost overruns and delays, provides the physical artery for this shift towards Pacific markets. Coupled with the upcoming launch of the $40 billion LNG Canada project, Ottawa is investing heavily in infrastructure to reach Asian customers. Second, China is strategically positioning itself to be a major recipient of this diversification. Rongsheng Petrochemical's multi-year deal with Suncor and its ongoing talks with other major Canadian producers demonstrate a calculated move to secure long-term, stable energy supplies, reducing reliance on the Middle East and capitalizing on Canada's new export capacity. Their sophisticated trading strategy, utilizing FOB terms and market arbitrage, further solidifies their advantage. Third, the United States faces potential economic repercussions from this shift and its own trade policies. Former President Trump's tariff threats, while perhaps intended to exert pressure, may ultimately accelerate Canada's pivot away from the U.S. market. U.S. refiners could face higher crude costs, and American consumers might see increased prices at the pump, creating political challenges domestically. The era of near-exclusive U.S. access to discounted Canadian energy appears to be ending. Fourth, the geopolitical landscape of energy is being reshaped. Canada is leveraging its resources to become a more independent global energy player. China is actively securing diverse energy sources. The long-standing, deeply integrated North American energy relationship is evolving, potentially weakening, as new Pacific and potentially Atlantic/Arctic routes gain prominence. Finally, while the economic potential for Canada is significant, potentially boosting GDP and export revenues, substantial risks remain. Environmental concerns about increased tanker traffic and potential spills persist. Furthermore, the success of this pivot depends heavily on sustained demand from Asian markets and navigating the complex geopolitical relationships with both the U.S. and China. Canada's energy future is entering a new, uncertain, but potentially transformative chapter. Thank you for joining us for this analysis. If you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content on the global economy and political landscape. We value your perspective, so leave a comment below.